Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavi Videtam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvi Grinanti Puritachana. So we are studying the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we are on page 94 in the book which I'm reading. Page 94. The date is 2nd April 1882. 2nd April 1882. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting in the drawing room of Keshab Chandra Sen's house in Calcutta. Now, Keshab Chandra Sen was a very important person in Calcutta in those days because he was the leader of the Brahmo Samaj, which was the major reform movement among the Hindus in late 19th century. When Keshav was told of his arrival, he came to the drawing room dressed to go out, for he was about to call on a sick friend. Now he cancelled his plan. The master said to him, "You have so many things to attend to. Besides, you have to edit a newspaper. You have no time to come to Dakshineshwar. So I have come to see you. When I heard of your illness, I vowed green coconut and sugar to the Divine Mother for your recovery." I mean, it's a translation of the Bengali phrase, "Dab chini mein." It's one of the rituals. There's a famous Kali temple in Calcutta, so where Sri Ramakrishna, he took the vow, "I'll offer this and let Keshav be cured." I said to her, "Mother, if something happens to Keshav, with whom shall I talk in Calcutta?" Sri Ramakrishna spoke to Pratap and the other Brahmo devotees. M was seated nearby. Pointing to him, the master said to Keshav, "Will you please ask him why he doesn't come to Dakshineshwar anymore? He repeatedly tells me he's not attached to his wife and children." M had been paying visits to the master for about a month. His absence for a time from Dakshineshwar called forth this remark. Sri Ramakrishna had asked M to write to him if his coming were delayed. Pandit Samadhyay was present. The Brahmo devotees introduced him to Sri Ramakrishna as a scholar, well versed in the Vedas and the other scriptures. The master said, "Yes, I can see inside him through his eyes, as one can see the objects in a room through the glass door." Trailokya sang. Suddenly the master stood up and went into samadhi, repeating the mother's name. Coming down a little to the plane of sense consciousness, he danced and sang, "I drink no ordinary wine, but the wine of everlasting bliss. As I repeat my mother Kali's name, it so intoxicates my mind that people take me to be drunk," and so on. The master looked at Keshav tenderly, as if Keshav were his very own. He seemed to fear that Keshav might belong to someone else, that is to say, that he might become a worldly person. Looking at him, the master sang again, "We are afraid to speak, and yet we are afraid to keep still. Our minds, O Radha, half believe that we are about to lose you. We tell you the secret that we know, the secret whereby we ourselves and others with our help have passed through many a time of peril. Now it all depends on you." Quoting the last part of the song, he said to Keshav, that is to say, renounce everything and call on God. He alone is real, all else is illusory. Without the realization of God, everything is futile. This is the great secret. The master sat down again and began to converse with the devotees. For a while, he listened to a piano recital, enjoying it like a child. Then he was taken to the inner apartments, where he was served with refreshments, and the ladies saluted him. As the master was leaving Keshav's house, the Brahmo devotees accompanied him respectfully to his carriage. There's quite a bit to be going on with. Notice the intense concern that Sri Ramakrishna has for the devotees. First Keshav, and then the Pandit Samadhyay, then M himself. His concern is, it's interesting to note this. You see, some people, they misunderstand the Advaitic approach by thinking that the world is false. World is an appearance. So why should one care about others? I mean, others are an appearance. I mean, after all, you don't care for people in your dream. When you wake up, you're not worried about what happened to the person I saw in my dream, because you feel they don't exist. But this is not the correct interpretation. As long as I consider myself to be an individual, to that extent, other individuals are also real. To the extent that I am affected by my own hunger and thirst, by my own pain and pleasure, by my own insult and honor, to that extent, others are also affected. And to that extent, everything is real. Everybody around me is real. See, it is only when one takes the perspective of pure being or pure awareness, then everything is an appearance in pure awareness. But if I identify myself taking the position perspective of one body mind, one individual, then the other individuals are also there. You can't say in a dream itself, you can't say that here I am, now I realize all this is a dream, so everything is false except me. No, in that case, you, the one who's saying this in the dream, is also false. Only the background, the dreamer's mind is real. So until we realize that we are Brahman, and when we realize, until we realize we are Brahman, we have to give that level of reality to everything. The people and the responsibilities in the world, all of that is as real as this one's own body mind. And even when you realize that you're Brahman, then the feeling is all are one with me. You see the oneness in all existence. It's a spiritual oneness. It's not falsity. It's not saying all are false. It is saying all are real as God. I am seeing the oneness of a divine oneness, a spiritual oneness everywhere in the universe. So this is what Sri Ramakrishna is, the love he has stems from this. But there's something more here. It is, you notice that it's not just the love that the feeling of oneness he will have for everything in the universe. That is there. But then there's a special concern for the devotees, you see, for Keshav, for M, for the Pandit Samadhyay. What is happening here is that he has himself mentioned it at different places. You know, like he says, devotees of God like to talk and enjoy God. He says, he gives the example of those who are hemp smokers. They like to get together and smoke hemp together. They enjoy each other's company. So in the same way, he says, those who love God, there is a community of spiritual seekers, and they love and feel for each other. So this community, this love comes from that. It's not just the Advaitic sense of oneness with everything. Then you would have oneness for everything, not this special pull towards Keshav and M and Narendranath and all the devotees. And one more, even more than that, even more than just that they are devotees, that they love God, it is the concern of a guru, a mother, guru for the disciple, the mother for the children, that these ones are special in the sense they can realize God in this very life. They have to try a little more, and I can help them to realize God. That intensity, perhaps he feels it more than they feel it. He knows that they can, and it's the most important thing in the world. And these people are close. A little more effort, you can do it. I remember one sadhu, a wonderful Swami I met in the mountains near Gangotri. So one day, with a smile, he looked at me. I'll tell you in Hindi, and then he said, I'll translate. He said, "आप जो है ना महात्मा जी, आपका हो जाएगा. थोड़ा कस के लगाइए." Then he said, you know, oh monk, you can attain enlightenment. Just put forth a little more effort. So this kind of feeling the guru has for the disciples. A good guru, the best kind of guru. Sri Ramakrishna says gurus are also of three kinds. He says the lowest kind or the ordinary guru is the one who gives spiritual instructions, and that's it. Like the doctor who tells you the medicine and the diet to be taken, and that's it. After that, what the patient does, if the patient follows, good for him. If he does not follow it, the doctor is not bothered. The doctor has done his duty. The guru is also like that, has given you classes, has told you that you are Brahman. I think Dora is there here in the class. I remember once last year, she knocked on my door and she said, "This person is calling from India and he has a question. The question is, who am I? I told him he is Brahman, but he still wants to hear it from you." So the guru has given the instruction that you are Brahman. The guru has given you the mantra. Guru has taught you how to meditate. Now it's up to you. What do you do? So that's the average, the ordinary kind of guru. A better doctor is the one who follows up. Are you following the diet? Are you taking the medicines? How are you feeling? Checks in on the patient once in a while and encourages. So you're much better. Some doctors have a very nice bedside manner. I know among the monks, some of my friends are doctors. So the most popular ones, they're all equally qualified. But the most popular one I know is the one who is most jolly. You know, you come to him with any problem, the first thing he will tell you, "Oh, that's nothing. Don't worry. It'll be all right." And you already feel much better. And there's another Swami who's a doctor. If you go to him, equally good. Go to him and say this, he will immediately go grim and see, "Oh, I see." He will say, "Oh, I see." And you feel this cold, sinking feeling in your heart. So a bedside manner. So some gurus can they do that. They'll follow up. They have personal concern for the disciples, for the seekers of God. They'll find out how you are doing and give you that kind of personalized relationship. Some are good at that. And the best kind of doctor, this is also Ramakrishna says this, the best kind of doctor says that, is aggressive. So what? You will not take the medicine. Let me see how you will not take the medicine. And he jumps on the patient. Sri Ramakrishna gives a graphic description. He puts his knee on the patient's chest and opens the patient's mouth and pours the medicine down the patient's throat. So the best guru is like that, will make sure. So Sri Ramakrishna here is saying, why are you not coming? He's telling Keshav that, "Oh, you are very busy. That's why I have come." I think to Keshav's great embarrassment. And then he points out to M. He's telling Keshav, "Tell him, ask him why he's not coming to Dakshineshwar." And then he tells M, "If you don't come next time, then write to me. Let me know that you're not coming." So this kind of extraordinary, intense concern, some are like that. So in San Francisco, I was reading, Swami Turiyanandaji was there. And then Swami Trigunatitanandaji came. Both of them are disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Both are enlightened souls, but their approach is different. One of the American devotees at that time writes, so Swami Turiyanandaji left everything to the mother. Left everything to the mother. If it's mother's will, it will happen. What about this disciple? What about that gentleman? If it's mother's will. So, and then Swami Trigunatitanandaji came, who was a very take charge kind of Swami. No nonsense. And so one American disciple is writing, Swami Trigunatitananda did not believe in leaving things to the mother. So he would take charge, and he could be really difficult to live with. I mean, he would, but he made sure that you will attain God realization. Actually, he writes, probably in reply to an American lady who complained about his scoldings. He writes, "Madam, you have taken refuge in me. Now it is my responsibility to drag you willy-nilly to the shores of the ocean of immortality and throw you in there. If on the way I break a few of your bones, I do not care." So that is the Uttam Guru, the best kind of Guru. And this is the real reason. You can look at it at different levels. One is the Advaitic oneness. You will feel a oneness with everybody in the universe. Deeper, more specialized, focused love is the love of devotees for other devotees, because you all enjoy a spiritual community. And then you'll find often that you become closer, you care more for the devotees than for your own relatives. This happens. I've seen again and again and again. Um, in Belur Mutt, in the monastery, and all the devotees who would come and visit regularly, they became much closer to the monastery than even their own relatives or their friend circle. It happens again and again. You can see that. And even more than that is the concern of a guru for the personal feeling that these people can really attain God realization. And so there's special attention. Only we may not realize it. We may sometimes misunderstand. Sometimes these great teachers are very, very strict and very harsh. So you may feel just the opposite, that he doesn't like me, or maybe he thinks I am not spiritual enough because of so much of this, or so much of scolding. It may just be the opposite. It may just be that the guru thinks that there is a real possibility of this person attaining to something. So extra dose of scolding is necessary. In fact, I knew a very senior Swami who was famous for his scoldings. It's only when he was sweet and polite that you knew that you were in real trouble. If he scolded you and brought you to the verge of tears, then you know you're safe, because he's going to help you out, whatever the problem is. There are so many such examples. Swami Nirvanananda ji, Shujji Maharaj. He was the vice president of the Ramakrishna Math and Mission. In fact, those who have read the life of Swami Brahmananda, the eternal companion, they will find towards the end, before he attained Mahasamadhi, Swami Brahmananda, he blessed all those around him. And the last person who came into his room was his close attendant, this young monk, Shujji Maharaj. Shujjo Maharaj, his name was Shujjo. So in diminutive was Shujji Maharaj. And Swami Brahmananda says, it's published. He says that, what else shall I say to you? May you attain Brahma Jnana in this very life. You will attain enlightenment in this very life. But that's there. During his lifetime, when this Shujji Maharaj was serving him, he faced so many scoldings. Once Swami Brahmananda scolded him apparently completely unfairly for a very small mistake. And Shujji Maharaj wanted to run away or something like that. I've forgotten the exact incident. But the end was that finally Swami Brahmananda called him very affectionately and said that, you know why I tell you this? Because I know that you will attain God realization in this life, that it is possible for you. That is why I tell you. Another great Swami I met, not of our order. He was a wandering monk, Swami Ramananda Saraswati. I met him in Haridwar. He told us a story about his own guru once. He said that his guru one day in the morning, and his guru used to scold him quite a bit. One day in the morning, he came to his guru's room, and they used to wear those wooden clogs at that time. They were called kharam. They make a, you can imagine, they're pretty noisy. It's difficult to be silent when you move on wooden clogs. So he came clump, clump, clump to his guru's room, and the guru scolded him harshly. So, can't you be more careful? Why are you making such a racket? Now, this is patently unfair, because you can't move around without making a racket if you're wearing that kind of thing. And worse, another brahmachari, so they were brahmacharis, novices at that time. Another brahmachari was sleeping at that time in the next room. And this was like in the morning, like 7 a.m. or something like that. And the guru goes up to this, you're not supposed to sleep after sunrise. So this guru goes up to the brahmachari and says sweetly, my dear boy, are you awake? Would you like some tea? Like bed tea? And this was so unfair that Swami said, I felt very hurt, not so much by his scolding of me, but this completely unfair treatment. This lack of fairness is something everybody understands. So he later on he grumbled to his guru. He said, look at his arrogance. That boy, he is sleeping in front of you, and you don't say a single thing to him. Rather, you offer him a cup of tea. Then the Guru said, look, my boy, I see possibilities in you. You can attain enlightenment in this life. And the other one, that boy, nothing is going to happen to him, at least in this life. So all I can do for him is to be sweet and kind to him. So that is the concern of the Guru for the one who's going to, for the spiritual seeker. That you see in Sri Ramakrishna. Throughout, all those who are close disciples, he was intensely concerned with them. And then you see Pandit Samadhyay. This is very striking. They are telling him that this Pandit is a great Pandit, he's very learned, and he's a spiritual man. He's very qualified, well versed. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, I can see inside him through his eyes, like you can see objects in a room through glass doors. And this can be scary. I told you of a story, I think last week, of this old gentleman who came to Swami Brahmananda, and he wept. He said, I had the opportunity to see Sri Ramakrishna. I was a young man in this same locality where Sri Ramakrishna stayed, in the temple of Dakshineshwar. I stayed in North Calcutta. So I could have, one day I heard about Sri Ramakrishna, and I walked to the temple to see Sri Ramakrishna. But on the way, a great fear seized me, because I felt, here is a man who can see through into me and know everything about me. And I felt very scared suddenly that he will know all my secrets, or all my thoughts, which are in my heart and everything. And so he did not go. He went back home. He said, I went back home and I missed the chance, the opportunity of seeing Sri Ramakrishna. And he wept bitterly. Of course, Swami Brahmananda consoled him and said that you have seen the Son, you have seen the Father. He meant that if you've seen me, you have seen Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna used to consider Swami Brahmananda his spiritual son. Then he sings that beautiful song, I drink no ordinary wine, but the wine of everlasting bliss. I repeat my mother Kali's name, and I'm intoxicated. People think that I'm drunk. And then he sings that song about Radha and talks about a secret. And then it is said, he's actually giving a message to Keshav. See, the reason he keeps telling people, come and talk to me, come and meet me in Dakshineshwar. Don't get so involved in the world. He says that you have a newspaper to edit and you've got so many things to do. To M, he says you're attached to your family. So come and meet me. Why? He says the secret is renounce everything and call on God. He alone is real. All else is illusory. Without the realization of God, everything is futile. This is the great secret. Simple secret, but it's a great secret. It's worth thinking about. Nothing more needs to be said, like in the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, compiled by Swami Brahmananda. I've often mentioned this. A gentleman came and asked Sri Ramakrishna, can you tell me all of spirituality in one sentence? Can you give me spirituality in one sentence? And Sri Ramakrishna looked at him and said, Brahman is real, the world is false. God is real, the world is false. And said, assimilate this. Eti dharana karo in Bengali, he said, assimilate this, absorb this, contemplate this. And then Swami Brahmananda mentions, having said this, Sri Ramakrishna fell silent. Bengali, yaha bolia tini chup koriya rohilen. That fell silent is emphasized, to emphasize that this is the core of spirituality. It's so simple. Books and books can be written on it. I was just thinking that we had this Easter, and I was looking up some books, Christian literature, mystical literature. We often refer to the Imitation of Christ. Swami Vivekananda loved that book. And in that book, at the very beginning, there's a quote which is oft quoted. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. So I'll quote that line for you. It's exactly what Sri Ramakrishna is saying here. So this is the Imitation of Christ. Vanity of vanities and all is vanity, except to love God and serve Him alone. Except to love God and serve Him alone. And this is what Sri Ramakrishna says, all is zeros. money and achievement and learning and name and fame and power and health, these are all zeros. The more you line them up, you still end up with zero. You still end up with emptiness. But there is a one. It's not that everything is meaningless. No, there is a one. If you have that one, everything gets meaning. But that one must hold on to. And one is this: except to love God and serve Him alone. You see, the beauty of this book, Imitation of Christ, is this: what this author, who was a monk who lived about 700, 800 years ago in France, Thomas à Kempis, what he has done is the whole Bible, that means the Old Testament and the New Testament, he has skillfully taken the best, the choicest things, and he has woven them together in this book. So when you read a sentence like, vanity of vanities and all is vanity except to love God and serve Him alone, these are actually two quotations from different parts of the Bible and stitched together. So if you go back to the original quotation, you find more. So the first thing is, vanity of vanities and all is vanity. So this is from the book of Ecclesiastes. I'll just quote the original for you. This is Ecclesiastes 1:2. So one of the texts of the Old Testament. That all is meaningless except God. So the first part is, all is meaningless. Very powerful it is said. And it is not fashionable these days. Right there in the Bible. People don't want to touch it. In fact, early Christianity, if you see what Christ taught, and the religion of the prophets in Judaism, it is a very sannyasi religion. It's the religion of a great renunciation. People don't want to touch that these days. For example, let me read out. So this is from where Thomas à Kempis has just taken half a sentence from this, but let me read out the whole thing. So this is Ecclesiastes 1, the beginning. The name of that paragraph itself is, everything is meaningless. The words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. So who is the teacher here is not known. Some people say it is King Solomon. So it's a king who's saying this, remember. And if you read it, you'll be surprised. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What does man gain from all his labor, at which he toils under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun sets, and hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows to the south and turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever returning on its course. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they return again. All things are wearisome, more than one can say. The eye has never enough of seeing, nor the ear its fill of hearing. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. All these are famous quotes, Shakespeare and all, just openly they used it. Is there anything of which one can say, look, there is something new. It was here already, long ago. It was here before our time. There is no remembrance of men of old, and even those who are yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow. Wisdom, next paragraph is, wisdom is meaningless. Just imagine, knowledge is meaningless, he says. I, the teacher, I was king over Israel in Jerusalem. I devoted myself to study and to explore the wisdom of all under heaven. What a heavy burden God has laid on men. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. And so on, he goes on. He says, for with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief. And then paragraph after paragraph. Pleasures are meaningless. Work is meaningless. Wisdom and folly are meaningless. And then he goes on. There's a time for everything, and so on and so forth. I'm reminded of Adi Shankaracharya. Of course, I should also point out the other part of it. This is the negative part of it, the positive part, that as Thomas A. Kempis says, vanity of vanities, and all is vanity except to love God and to serve him alone. So that part is, see, in one sentence, is completely different books of the Bible. This is from Deuteronomy 6:13. I marked that out also. Let me just read that part out. There, this is probably the most important prayer in Judaism. So it's the holiest of all prayers. He has just quoted one line from it. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. So this little part he has sort of taken and paraphrased and put it there. Fear the Lord your God and serve him only. I'm reminded of the famous story of Shankaracharya, that Bhaja Govindam. That story is there. So Shankaracharya, when in his travels, he comes up across this man who's memorizing a Sanskrit a grammar sutra. So Dukrin Karani, he's sitting on the bank of the river and memorizing it. We think about the sutra systems. See, sutra systems were developed very early on, before all the philosophies came in their present form. So to systematize an entire system of philosophy and compress it so that a person can memorize it, you can understand, you can retain the whole of a system like Vedanta or Nyaya or something by just memorizing the sutras. You don't have to memorize whole texts. But the problem with the sutra is the sutras are so compact, so they have to be expanded again like a zip file, so to make it usable. And we talk about Narada Bhakti Sutras, Patanjali Yoga Sutras. These are all child's play. Even Brahma Sutra, 555 sutras, still child's play compared to the Panini Sutras. We're more than 4,000. Ashtadhyayi. And I have met scholars who memorize the whole thing. And not only memorize 4,000 sutras, they could recite it from first to the last and from back to the front again. Just recite it out. Actually, when this one Swami, the Swami I mentioned, who said to me, "Aapka ho jayega Mahatma ji," that Swami, he was a very scholarly Swami. He's the one who said that. Not only did I memorize it from the first to the last, but I could, at one time, I could recite it from back to front. I was so incredulous. He started reciting there and then. I thought, oh God, is he going to recite 4,000 sutras? And then I said, okay, I believe you. Now, Shankaracharya, on his way, somewhere on his pilgrimage across India, he suddenly saw on the bank of a Ganga this man sitting and memorizing Dukrin Karane, one of the sutras he's memorizing. And he was overcome with pity for this. In some stories, it's a boy, some stories, it's an old man. So he's pity for this man, and he said, Dinamapi rajani sayam prata shishira vasanto punarayata kala kridati gacchati ayu tadapi namunchati asha vayu bhaja govindam govindam bhaja mudhamate prapte sannihite marane nahi rakshati dukrin karane. Two versions. Prapte sannihite kale is there, prapte sannihite marane is there. What does it mean? Almost in the same words as the song of King Solomon. It says, day comes is followed by night, Dinamapi Rajani, Sayam Prata, evening is followed by dawn, by morning. Winter comes and goes, spring comes again, Shishira Vasanta. Time is playing. Time plays around. Time is playing. Our life is slipping away. Life is slipping away. Kachati ayu. Tadapi na munchati asha vayu. The winds of desire, of hope, that hope not in a good sense, in the sense that just a little bit of more money, I'll be happy. Just a little bit of this, this thing I do, get a degree, and then I'll be happy. Move to a better location of town, and then I'll be happy. Get this gadget, I'll be happy. Read that book, I'll be happy. And that will be it. Never, it will never be fulfilled. Neither by satisfaction of desires, nor by chasing desires and being frustrated. In no way. Either desires are satisfied or not satisfied. In both cases, useless. As I say, is meaningless, meaningless, all is meaningless, because they're all zeros. If we chase zeros and we get them, no satisfaction. Don't get them, frustration. Then what should you do? He says to that child, Bhaja Govindam, worship Krishna, worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja. O fool, O ignorant one, worship. So this is a Sanskrit scholar. He's telling him that, O ignorant one, worship the Lord. Why? Prapte sanhite marane, when the time of death comes near, your grammar will not save you. Nahi nahi rakshati dukrin karane. Your Sanskrit grammar is not going to save you. The only thing that saves you is the Lord. So worship the Lord, worship the Lord, worship the Lord. And this Swami, who was a master of grammar, he said, please don't misunderstand. This is, he told me, this is not a criticism of grammar. It's there's something worth understanding, that there's a principle in the Mimamsa system. Nahi ninda nindyam ninditum pravartate apitu stotum. That means, the whole sentence means, criticism in the Shastras, criticism in the scriptures is not meant for criticizing that which is being criticized. It's not meant for criticizing that which is being criticized. Rather, it's meant for emphasizing something positive. They are not criticizing something, actually, even if it sounds critical. They're not criticizing Sanskrit grammar here, for example. What they are emphasizing is devotion is much more important than your grammar. This reminds me of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was a master logician. There's something called the Bengal School of Logic. Among the traditional Indian systems of philosophy, Nyaya is a philosophy which specialized in logic. In fact, the very word Nyaya has become synonymous with logic. But Nyaya was actually an ancient school of philosophy. Around 1000 AD, this school underwent a revolution. So there was this great logician, Gangesha, in Mithila. He was not Bengali, he was in Mithila, in what is now present-day Bihar. And he wrote a book called, around 900 years ago, he wrote a book called Tattva Chintamani, the jewel of logical principles or something. So Tattva Chintamani, massive book, one of the hardest ever texts I've ever. Advaita Vedanta texts are, child's play compared to it. Tattva Chintamani. If you ask any traditional Pandit, they will say that's the toughest text ever. So great Pandits have tried to explain it to us. I studied one page from it once. It took us 15 days. And the page was on nothing. The topic was nothing, abhava. So in the postgraduate departments of Indian philosophy in India, they study exactly 5 sentences from it, called Vyapti Panchaka. 5 sentences. That's the entire course in logic. They're defining, there's a definition of what is called invariable concomitance, how you make inferences. So there's a relationship based on which you make inferences. And there's a definition of that. There's a point to what I'm saying. So I'm not just wandering around here and there. So there's definitions. So what is this Vyapti? I'm not going into what does it mean? I'll simply get diverted otherwise. But anyway, the logicians have to give definitions. So Gangesha, the great logician, in that book, he suggests 5 definitions. Without that, inference will not work. And he rejects all 5 definitions also. So we might say, what is the point of reading it? The point of reading it is to understand logic. People can learn advanced logic by reading those definitions. Very difficult. Very, very difficult. In fact, Swami Vivekananda said, it's the most, he says, mind-bewildering complexity. This is called Navya Nyaya, the new school of logic, which started with Gangesha. Following Gangesha, the whole school was revolutionized. And one motivation for revolutionizing this was Advaita Vedanta. Their great enemy was us. So to destroy us, they had to revise their entire logic. Anyway, later it was imported into Bengal. And so it flourished in Bengal. And so the school of Navya Nyaya. In fact, for a long time in Bengal, it was known for Navya Nyaya, the new school of new logic, rather than for Vedanta. So most of the Bengali scholars were scholars of Navya Nyaya. I met some of these redoubtable old Pandits. There are very few of them left. They're among them. I mean, if you see them debating, it's a sight to watch in fluent Sanskrit. And it's very subtle points of logic. You feel that they are about to come to blows with each other. They get so excited about it. Okay, so now what happened was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was born in a family of such scholars. And so he had a school of logic and he taught it. He became famous as a Pandit who could defeat anybody in debates. Once he was initiated into the Krishna mantra, all he could think about was Krishna. So there's a very beautiful scene of the young Chaitanya in his school, the last days of his school of logic. He is teaching, or he thinks he's teaching, and he sees all the students who are sitting there who have come to learn logic. They're all staring at him, dumbfounded. And he says, am I saying something wrong? And they said, but you are not teaching us. You're just talking about Krishna. You're not teaching us logic. Then Chaitanya, he with folded hands, he said, I beseech you with folded hands, give up this meaningless pursuit of philosophy and logic. Take the name of Krishna and make your lives blessed. And he shut down the school that day. He never went back again. In fact, they say that until the invention of modern the symbolic logic, mathematical logic in the 19th century in Europe, until that time, the most advanced logic was not the Greek logic, Aristotelian logic, far from it. Because I've studied both. I've studied the old Nyaya, I've studied the new Navya Nyaya. I took 3 courses, beginners, intermediate, and advanced courses in Navya Nyaya, and studied it from a Pandit. And I've studied Aristotelian logic also. I studied it for 1 year back in my university days. I can tell you that there is no comparison. It is so sophisticated. But of course, modern symbolic logic or mathematical logic is even more powerful than Navya Nyaya. Anyway, Navya Nyaya became very important in Indian philosophy because everybody learned it. It's such a powerful thing. Everybody learned it. And after Gangesha, all philosophies, including us, the Vedantins, they all adopted that language. So all the Vedanta books, some of the more tough ones, like Advaita Siddhi and all, which were written after, say, 14th century or so, they're all written in the specialized language of Navya Nyaya. Navya Nyaya, it is Sanskrit, but not ordinary Sanskrit. It's a very logical kind of, it's designed for logic. So if you hear it, you will immediately realize that this person is talking in Navya Nyaya Sanskrit. Yeah, there's a joy in that, but it's not a spiritual joy. I remember Swami Bhuteshanandaji, who was a master of Navya Nyaya himself. So one day, monks, we were asking him that there is a senior monk was asking, so how much Nyaya should one study? Because he had studied so much. He said, you don't need much. You just need the rudiments in order to understand Vedanta. More than that, you don't need. Then this monk persisted. He said, but Swami, remember, Bhuteshanji was at that time 97, 96 or 97 years old. But Swami, there's a joy in studying Navya. There's a joy. There's a pleasure in it, a very intellectual kind of pleasure. And I still remember Swami Bhuteshanji's reply. And remember who is saying this, not somebody who does not know, who is a master of Navya. That person is saying this. He said, yes, and there is a joy in playing chess too. That means the joy of Navya is not a spiritual joy. It's a joy like it's an intellectual, like a game of chess, an intellectual battle. I'll tell you in Bengali for those who understand Bengali. The Swami said to Swami Bhuteshananda, Maharaj, ন্যায় পড়াতে তো একটা আনন্দ আছে. And Bhuteshanji replied, সে দাবা খেলাতেও আছে. In playing chess also, he would slowly draw it out. So it is not a spiritual joy. The joy of learning of any kind of knowledge, it's good. It's a refined kind of joy, but it's not spirituality. Even if it is Navya or even if it is a very sophisticated Advaita Vedanta text, they have their purpose, but it's not a spiritual joy. In fact, I was just reading the very first page of The Imitation of Christ. It says, lofty words do not make a man holy, but a good life makes him dear to God. I would far rather feel repentance than be able to define it. If you knew the whole Bible by heart and all the teachings of the philosophers, how would this help you without the grace and love of God? So, nahi nahi rakshati dukrin karane. Your memorization of all this. So these are also, even scriptures are also zeros without the love of God, without taking refuge in God. And if you take refuge in God and you do not have this learning, no harm. You still have got the one. That's enough for liberation and moksha. So that's why somebody said the great miracle of Sri Ramakrishna was Latu Maharaj, Swami Adbhutanandaji, who was illiterate and who became an enlightened person, Brahmagyani. Let me just see the discussion on the chat. Sean Lee says, you always talk about enlightenment. What are the attributes of an enlightened person? Bhagavad Gita. A number of times it has been said. Second chapter at the end, Arjuna asks this very question. What are the characteristics of an enlightened person? Isn't that to be a good person with morality, judgment, and contentment? An enlightened person? If so, then to be an enlightened individual being is possible in this life. Just wondering. I know it's an insignificant question. No, it's not an insignificant question. It's a very natural question. So, please refer to Bhagavad Gita, last beautiful description. Arjuna's question and the last verses of the Bhagavad Gita up to verse number 72. It's an answer given by Krishna to Arjuna's question. Arjuna asks, what is the definition of an enlightened person? How does an enlightened person speak and walk and sit? How does an enlightened person become absorbed in God? That means, how is this person different from the rest of us? Isn't to be enlightened is to be a good person with morality, judgment, and contentment, an enlightened person? There's something that one can practice, and that's a good person. But that's still not an enlightened person. A good person who has cultivated these virtues, and one must cultivate these virtues. Without that, no spirituality is possible. But that is not enough, and that is not enlightenment. Girish says, Kurt Gödel had an ontological argument which is incomprehensible to me. I also tried at one time, but it's also very difficult to understand. But do you think that Gödel's argument, such as it is, can be extended to prove Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya? I don't know what Gödel's argument is, but it's interesting that Kurt Gödel, he was not an atheist. Not only that, he believed that the existence of God can be proved logically. And he was working on a proof when he was here in Institute of Advanced Studies at Princeton. But then I just looked at the proof. It's been published, part of it. It's all beyond me. It's Probably only advanced mathematicians or those who know symbolic logic can make some kind of sense out of it. Can it be extended to prove Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya? You don't have to. You take up any advanced text of Advaita Vedanta. For example, if you take up the second chapter of the Mandukya Karika, Alata Shanti, not Alata Shanti, Vaitathya Prakaranam, the chapter on the falsity of the world. That itself, it's a pretty logical proof that the world is an appearance, has to be, and there is an underlying reality. So Adhyasa, so that is the Mandukya Karika. You can take up something like the Adhyasa Bhashya, which is a masterpiece, which is Shankaracharya's introduction to the Brahma Sutras. It's an essay written by Shankaracharya, just 2 pages. But there, it's a direct proof of, and it should be most evident that that consciousness alone is real and the world is an appearance in consciousness. That's the first sentence of the Adhyasa Bhashya, in fact. And I mentioned this earlier. Professor J.N. Mahanti once told me, and this J.N. Mahanti is a person who is a master of both Eastern and Western philosophy. In 1940s, just after the independence of India, he at that time he was studying in Calcutta University, and he got the benefit of all this Navya Nyaya and everything. In fact, J.N. Mahanti is one person who translated a bit of this Tattva Chintamani I was telling you about, the most terrifying book. He translated a few passages of it into English. It's called the Nyaya Doctrine of Truth, I think. J.N. Mahanti, Nyaya Doctrine of Truth. Or Doctrine of Knowledge, something like that. It is a little bit of the Tattva Chintamani which was translated by him. Anyway, but this philosophy professor, young man at that time in Calcutta University, he did something which nobody else in his age group they were thinking of doing. There, others were all taking up jobs and all. He spent some time with Acharya Vinoba Bhave, and then, or before that, he went to Germany. He said, I should learn Western philosophy. I have learned what I have to of Indian philosophy. I should learn Western philosophy. In those days, when Germany was a devastated ruin in 1948-49, this young man goes from India with no resources whatsoever, and he wants to learn German philosophy. And he is today one of the leading authorities on Husserl's phenomenology, which was an early 20th century German philosophy. He writes in his autobiography about going to Sanskrit classes in Germany, in the university where he was studying. He just wanted to see, perhaps he had the superiority complex. I have studied under the greatest scholars that time in India, in Calcutta University. What can these Germans, I wonder how they study Sanskrit. And he notes that he was impressed by their thoroughness and their depth and the seriousness with which they studied Sanskrit. He gives the example of a Shalaka Pariksha, which is a traditional method of examination. The professor, he gets this manuscript, old manuscript from a museum, for an examination. So the students have to memorize the whole manuscript. And the examination is, the professor is going to take a needle and push it through the manuscript. And where the needle stops, that page will be opened, and the student has to recite the entire page from his or her memory and then answer questions based on that. Translate it into German and then answer questions based on that. Can you imagine? I can't imagine such an examination today. So this Professor J.N. Mahanti told me that of all the philosophical literature I have read of the East and the West, there is nothing more profound than the first sentence of the Adhyasa Bhashya. This is exact, I'm quoting from him. All the philosophical literature that I have read of the East and the West, there's nothing more profound I've ever read than the first sentence of the Adhyasa Bhashya, one sentence. And it is actually a proof that consciousness alone can be real and indubitable, and the world therefore must be an appearance in consciousness. So in this way, then in many ways it is proved. You have to go to advanced. So what do I mean by advanced Advaita philosophy. So I keep referring to advanced texts and advanced Advaita philosophy. So it's a good place to mention what I mean by that. So we know Advaita Vedanta means the foundational texts of Advaita Vedanta are the triple foundation. Upanishads are Advaita Vedanta, actually, are Vedanta, but Advaita Vedanta also. And the systematization of the Upanishads called the Brahma Sutras. And Krishna's teaching of the wisdom of the Upanishads in a practical form in the Bhagavad Gita. So Upanishad, Brahma Sutras, Bhagavad Gita. Put them together, this is the foundation of Advaita Vedanta. All Vedanta schools, including Advaita Vedanta. This is called Prasthanatrayi, the triple foundation, or triple canon in CANON, the foundational text, root texts. So this is Prasthanatrayi in Sanskrit. But students of Vedanta know that Advaita Vedanta, they know there's something called Brihat Prasthanatrayi, the greater triple foundation, the wider triple foundation, or the greater triple foundation. The greater triple foundation is three other texts, which are among the toughest texts I've come across in any kind of philosophy. Khandana Khanda Khadya of Sri Harsha, written about 900 years ago. They all belong to about 900, 800 years ago. 900 years ago. Sri Harsha's Khandana Khanda Khadya. If you translate that, that means cookies. Khanda Khadya means cookies. The cookies of refutation. So for him, refuting all other philosophies are cookies. So there he logically proves, or he logically disproves other, the realistic, dualistic philosophies to prove that consciousness alone can be real and the world is an appearance. So this, I'm all replying to Girish's question. The second time this happened is a book called Chitsukhi. The actual name is Pratyak Tattva Pradipika, Chitsukhi. Written because the author was Chitsukhacharya, a monk who lived around, I think, 700, 800 years ago. Another very difficult book, Chitsukhacharya's Chitsukhi. One of my teachers was studying it. I've just read the first portion of it, but one of my teachers was studying it when I joined the order 25 years ago. And I believe he's still studying the book. He goes once a week on Saturdays to the Institute of Culture to learn from a Pandit there. And so he's been going for the last 25 years. I don't think they have made much progress, a few pages. So that's the kind of book. But it's also a demonstration of the reality of consciousness and the appearance nature of the world. Then the third component of this Brihat Prasthanatrayi is Advaita Siddhi, which is one of the final books of Advaita Vedanta philosophy. Advaita Siddhi, establishment of non-duality. Pratyak Tattva Pradipika Chitsukhi, the name means the lamp which illumines or reveals as if the consciousness within. You don't need to reveal consciousness, but as if. So Pratyak Tattva Pradipika, the reality within. Advaita Siddhi, establishment of non-duality by Madhusudan Acharya, the great Madhusudan Acharya, who was also a great Pandit of Navya Nyaya, the school of neologic we're talking about. That was written about 400 years ago. Madhusudan Saraswati was a contemporary of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He actually went to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he never was able to meet. So these are the three books. The Advaita Siddhi is famous for giving the final definitions of falsity. So when you say falsity of the world, Girish was saying the word Brahman is real, the world is false, falsity of the world. Advaita Siddhi actually starts with that. The first sentence is, Nanu kimidam mithyatvam yatvam sadhyate. Well, what is this falsity you are trying to prove? And then it gives 5 definitions of falsity, which the non-dualists have been giving since the time of Shankara for 700 years. And it cuts down all of them. So these are all attacks by the Madhva school of philosophy. They cut down all the definitions of falsity given by the non-dualists. So Madhusudan Saraswati, he takes up those definitions and he gives the Madhva refutation of those definitions, and then he reestablishes each of those definitions and shows each of them is correct. That's the first part of Advaita Siddhi. Yeah. So my point is that there are proofs, and pretty heavy duty logic proofs. one more point I should mention here. Professor Arindam Chakravarti told me some interesting news. Stephen Phillips is a professor of Indian philosophy in Texas, retired now. For the first time, somebody has translated the entire Tattva Chintamani of Gangesha into English. The whole book has been translated into English. This was, I think it took him 20-30 years to do it. And Professor Arindam Chakravarti was saying that it is such a credit and discredit to all Indian philosophers that they were unable to accomplish this, what this American philosopher has been able to do. This philosopher, he used to go to India to study under his teacher in Chennai, and he would record those, and all the teaching was in Sanskrit. He would record it in cassettes and come back to America, and in the morning he would listen to it as while driving to work. And then he would teach in the university. While driving back from work, he would listen to those cassettes, and at night he would listen to those cassettes until he fell asleep. And he would try to translate 1 or 2 lines like this, and in this way he has finally finished it. It's been published by Bloomsbury, but don't think about ordering on Amazon. It costs $600, and you need a teacher to understand any bit of it. But anyway, it's good news that somebody was able to do this. Stephen Phillips. Prabir Babu says, how does one maintain a balance between bhakti and Advaita in practical life? It's not a balance. Have both. Swami Vivekananda strongly recommended it. Note it this way, that what you are approaching through Advaita is the same thing that you are loving through bhakti. Whole paradigm is different. Bhakti is a dualistic paradigm, for example, that you need to regard yourself as this person and God as this somehow separate greater reality whom I love and am devoted to. Fine, doesn't matter. Paradigms are in the mind, in your intellect. Why can't you switch between one paradigm and another? Why do you need to be stuck to one paradigm? That which is beyond the intellect, that which is infinite, you can appreciate in multiple paradigms. That's the beauty of it. Or when you do Advaitic inquiry, I am Brahman. With all logic, all reasoning, tracking it in your own experience, try to understand that. No conflict at all. And there is a kind of bhakti, which is Advaita bhakti, which is beyond Advaita, but that's different. So there's no conflict at all. And have both. Have plenty of both. Have plenty of jnana, plenty of bhakti, plenty of meditation, and plenty of service to others. Alpana saying that a few days ago there was an article that is confirmed that all this prapancha is fake. Scientific American. Oh yeah. See, be careful about these things. If you click on that link, what do you notice? Can anyone tell me? What is the problem? Assignment. You have to be critical. What's the first thing that you notice about the article? It was on April 1st. It's an April 1st joke. April Fool's joke. So it's an insider joke. Elon Musk, what happened was this Bostrom, this philosopher, actually wrote a paper. There is such a paper. And that paper, I know about this because we had this discussion in at Harvard University. This guy, very famous cosmologist from Columbia University. I'm like, it's probably the best known cosmologist today. You know, the PBS documentary, Elegant Universe. Brian Greene. Yeah, I always forget his name. So Brian Greene was there, and he was talking about it, the possibility that it could all be an simulation. So yes, there is a paper, and the paper is pretty convincing. It's a paper on probabilities. So paper is pretty convincing. The idea is that it's nothing to do with Vedanta, but it's very much like Vedanta. I mean, in the sense of like being Maya or something like a simulation. The basic idea is very simple. Suppose there is an alien civilization which has become so advanced that their computers are super powerful, and they can generate simulations of extraordinary realism. Suppose such a civilization is there. They're not difficult to imagine. Now, imagining that such a civilization is there and they have so many such computers, and looking at the stars in the, the number of stars and galaxies in the universe, there are many such civilizations, each running millions and billions of such simulations. Now the question is, in that case, the universe that you are experiencing, I and you are experiencing, what is the probability it is the one real universe, or one of the billions of equally, vivid, realistic simulations? Almost certainly, he proves, almost certainly, but there's almost no doubt that we are in a simulation. This is not real. This universe cannot be real. It's much easier, much more inexpensive in terms of energy and all to maintain a simulation than this for this to be the one real universe. This is completely from a probabilistic perspective. And so Brian Greene said there's nothing wrong with the math and all. It's just a thought experiment. Now then what happened was, why is this become popular? Elon Musk came, and up to this much the paper is correct, that what story you referred to. Elon Musk came along and he said he believes in it. He said it is true. I actually seriously feel that we are living in a simulation. Of course, Advaita Vedanta would agree that we are actually living in a simulation, but Advaita Vedanta takes another point of view. Not that there is one real universe and this is a simulation. So there cannot be a real universe, and logically there cannot be a real universe outside. That's the whole what we're talking about. You take Adhyasa Bhashya, you take Vaitatya Prakarana, you take any of those heavy duty, Khandana Khandakadya, Pratyak Tattva Pradipika, Advaita Siddhi, all of them in their own way, they logically prove this. It cannot be done. There cannot be a separate real universe. Yeah, and this article is just a hoax. It's just pulling your leg about it. According to Advaita Vedanta, April Fool joke is on them, yeah. And the joke is also, it's a very subtle joke actually, because they're not saying that it's false. They're just saying that, oh, it's proved. It's not proved from a scientific perspective. From an Advaitic perspective, actually, if you understand Advaita Vedanta, it's just a fact. Swami Vivekananda says, Maya is a statement of fact. It's not a theory. This is just the way it is. Bernardo Kastrup is one of the notable scientists who is respected in the scientific world also, who is saying the same thing. The whole thing must be in the mind. He says materialism. He has a book, Materialism is Baloney. Materialism is baloney. Bernardo Kastrup. And he says the world must be a simulation in a mind. What else? Punita ji says, my simulation ends every night only to start over again the next day. No proof needed. Correct. Panchadashi in the first chapter says that that this is the story. Our day, one consciousness, experiencing various kinds of having experiences throughout the day. And then you fall asleep. And this whole waking world disappears. And a series of dreams comes. The same consciousness continues. Then the dreams also stop. Blankness. Same consciousness continues. And then he says, this is the story today and tomorrow and day after tomorrow, day after day, month after month, year after year, lifetime after lifetime, age and eons after eons, the same story is continuing. One radiance awareness. In that, this game is being played. Panchadashi, very beautiful. That awareness neither rises nor sets. It's like thrilling if you read that verse in the first chapter. Naudeti nastameti samvid esha swayam prabha. It neither rises nor sets. It's not like sunrise, sunset. On the sun itself, there is no sunrise, sunset. One consciousness ever shining. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy takes on this idea. Yes, a computer. Meaning of life, meaning of the universe. Do you remember? Those who have read it, what is the meaning of the universe? Meaning of life, meaning of universe? 42, correct. If you're puzzled, what is 42? Why 42? We have to read the book. All right, then. On that crazy note, we have to end. Actually, somebody said, we always say that the whole meaning of life is this is a gymnasium where we are growing and evolving. In Vedanta also we say, we are evolving till we attain spiritual realization. We say this. And somebody said this to, an American lady said this to Swami Vivekananda. It's like a moral gymnasium in which we go morally. And he replied, no, madam, it is a circus and we are clowns. We have come here to tumble. Why? Because we love to tumble. So that is the 42 answer. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.